Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Roden, and today we are going to be going over all the Civic generations ranked from worst to best. There's exactly 11 generations of Civic, and I don't want to sit there. I don't want to hear it. I know somebody's going to do it, but I don't want to hear somebody be like, oh, well, Mark, you forgot about, like, this exact trim level of this exact year that's slightly different from this generation. No, there's 11 generations, man. We all know what generations means, okay? So that's what we're going over, the 11 generations of the Civic, ranked, in my opinion, from worst to best. Before we get into it, I want to make this very, very abundantly clear. This is mainly based on looks, okay? There is obviously, like, performance plays a factor into some of it, nostalgia plays a factor into some of it, like, legendary status plays a factor, but the majority of it is just how I think they look. But without further ado, let's get right into the list with the 11th and, in my opinion, the worst generation of Honda Civic. Coming as a surprise to absolutely nobody, the 11th place spot on this list is going to the 7th generation of the Honda Civic. The 7th gen Civic is just not bad, because no Civic is bad. Every Civic is a very, very good car. They have good motors for tuning. They look okay, I guess. Most of them. I think they look good. I feel like a lot of people will disagree there. It's a divisive kind of car for sure. Like, it definitely does depend on the kind of person you are, but I would say most people think they look good. But the 7th gen, it just doesn't do it for most people, and myself included. It's just a very boring looking car. Its engines aren't that great. I think at one point they came with a K series, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty cool, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's just not for me. And on top of that, like, the EP3 hatch, which is like the Type R model, is a pretty boring one compared to the others. Like, I don't know. They're just not that special, and so it's my least favorite. But coming in at 10th place, only one small smidgen of a spot above the 7th generation Civic, is the 10th generation Civic, which is the one that we were just on. I'm sure you see them all over the place right now, because every single person and their mother are driving one. They're those Civics, 2017, 2018, those, like, model year Civics. The Type R version of this Civic is pretty nice, and we actually got it in America. It's the first time we got a Type R in America, which was really cool. And I'm also pretty sure it's the first time there was a turbocharged Type R version of the Civic, which is also really cool. It made decent horsepower, it had great track performance. The car is great. Personally, though, my personal opinion, the looks just don't do it. I've seen Civic Type Rs, these versions obviously, in person, and they're cool, don't get me wrong. Like, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but like, that whole riced from factory thing really is true, and if you see them in person, they do just look a little bit too overdone, and they don't fit right, especially not in Civic, when the Civics are all about, like, being, like, sleek and look kind of like sleeperish, where that car just doesn't do it. Coming in at 9th place, however, is going to go back to one of the OGs. As a matter of fact, it is pretty much the OG besides one other car, the 2nd generation Civic. The 2nd gen Civic, this came out during the time where they started to, like, crack down on the regulations for bumpers. And so what they had to do was they took the 1st gen, which was already a really nice car, everybody kind of liked it, and then they just made it longer, and then also added these giant bumpers onto it, which were just not it. And I just think it also, like, is more like, squared off. It's not as round as the 1st gen, or honestly any generation Civic. It's a very square, like, sharp edged car, and it doesn't look bad per se, but at the same time, I would probably never own one. Like, it's kind of weird, because I can see myself owning a 10th gen Civic, which I know I put below this car, but I just can't see myself owning a 2nd gen. They just don't do it to me, man. The bumpers ruin it. On top of it, they're just too sharp and too square. It's just, I don't know, dog, not my thing. I'm not trying to drive a Minecraft car. But coming in at 8th place, Honda realized, like, with the 2nd gen, oh, not a lot of people think that this looks that good compared to the 1st gen. We gotta step up our game, boys. And so they did, but barely, because 8th place is the 3rd generation Civic, which is significantly different looking from the first 2 generations. It looks like a completely different car, to be honest, but it doesn't look good. Especially the hatch versions of these. The sedans or coupe versions of these 3rd gens aren't that bad. They still don't really do it for me. They're very boring, weird looking cars. They look like a car that you'd see in a cartoon, where, like, the front end of it is very, like, low, but then the middle, where, like, you sit, obviously, like, the cabin part is hugely high. Like, it looks like a cartoon little car. It's weird. But the hatch versions are horrible looking. Like, the back end is, like, slanted down and has these weird taillights on the back. They are not good looking cars. I don't think they look good at all. And on top of that, the performance is very lackluster. Just not it. Coming in at 7th place, however, we're getting out of the cars that I think are just straight up ugly, and getting into the cars that I do think are still pretty cool, just not as cool as the top ones, because 7th is the 9th generation Civic. I really like the 9th gen. I think it looks really nice. the only reason why I didn't put it much higher is because I think it's also very boring looking. It's not like, it doesn't really stand out from the crowd. It's just another commuter car on the road. I do think it looks like a nice commuter car, especially the coupes. The coupes version of these cars are really nice. I don't think I've ever seen a 9th gen hatchback now that I'm thinking of it. Do they have those? Is that even a thing? Why can I not think of that right now? I don't think they do, but the sedans are pretty nice too. They're once again, pretty average. The Type R versions of these cars, pretty average, you know, nothing super special. I wasn't like fiending for them when it came out. I don't know. It's just, it's a very average one. It's here at 7th, pretty much right in the middle. Nothing else I can really say about it. Coming in at 6th place, I hate that freaking word, 6th, how do you say it? I don't know. 6th place is the 11th generation, which is the one that we're on right now, the one that just came out, the FL5 Type R, that one. I think they did great with this generation. I think it looks incredible. They went back to the roots of it being like a simple looking car, but still sporty, and not too over the top like they did with the 10th gen. I think they absolutely mastered it. Its track performance is amazing. As a matter of fact, its track performance is so good. Little unknown factoid for you here. It is faster around the Nürburgring than the Bugatti Veyron. So whenever you're having an argument with some supercar kid and they're like, "Hey, so much fast," tell them that. Tell them that a freaking $50,000 to $60,000 Civic can beat your Bugatti Veyron around the Nürburgring. Tell them, because that's mind-blowing. It's an absolutely really well-performing car. Its looks are absolutely great in my opinion, but it still is lacking a lot. So that's why it's at 6th place, but it's just very good. I like it a lot. Coming in at 5th place is the car that started it all. It is the 1st generation of the Honda Civic. Yes, I think the 1st gen looks this much better than the 2nd generation. I really don't like the 2nd gen, okay? The 1st gen was perfect. It was incredibly small. It was like the Mini Cooper from Japan. We finally got a taste of like the K car kind of lifestyle of Japan when this car came out. It was rounded off, like even though it looks kind of square nowadays, back then it was a very rounded off car. It was obviously a commuter car, so everybody liked it. It was really, really lightweight. Like these cars are incredibly lightweight. They have an actually decently sized engine bay. People put B-series motors into these 1st and 2nd gen Civics all the time. And their looks are just, they're timeless. You add some like fender flares, like wide body fender flares, put some like 14-inch nice little JDM style wheels on there. You got yourself a retro style JDM beauty. Now, obviously the interior, I would personally not be able to drive probably because I'm 6 foot tall. So I'd probably look like Donkey Kong in that thing. I'd be squished, but I like it a lot. Coming in at the 4th position for this list is the most underrated Civic in the world, in my opinion, the 8th generation. The 8th gen gets a lot of hate for looking like an egg. People say it looks like if you took an egg and cut it in half, and I actually can see where they're going with that. I kind of agree in a way, it kind of does, but they made it work. The headlights, the taillights are incredible. Don't even get me started on the Type R model of this car. It looks even better than the normal ones. Even the normal sedans, I think, looks great. The coupes, I actually think, are worse looking than the sedans of this generation. The hatchbacks, don't even get me started. Those things are absolutely hideous, so we're not going to talk about those. We're mainly talking about the sedan 8th gens, but they look great. Everybody else says they look horrible. I heavily disagree. I think the 8th gens look awesome. On top of that, they're super dirt cheap. They're really decent in terms of performance, which is nice. They came with, this one definitely did come with a K-series in the SI models, which was nice too. There's just nothing else that I can really say to sell you on the 8th gen besides it's great. It obviously does kind of look like a little bit of an egg, and I can see where people are coming from that, and that's why it's not in my top 3, but it is a really nice looking car. Coming in at 3rd place is going to the wonderful 6th generation Civic. This is also, most people know it as the EK Civic, even though like EM1 is technically the coupe, and there's all these stupid chassis codes for it, but the EK Civic is the 6th gen, and this normally would have been like 1st place for me. I used to really like these cars. I used to think they were really great until I went to test drive one. I went to test drive one when I was trying to buy the Integra, and it just didn't do it for me. The car I was actually driving, though, was a pile of junk, so that's probably why, but I didn't really like it. But they do look really nice. They look probably, out of all the Civics, these are probably like the most basic looking, but basic works with Civics, dude. They do. That's kind of like their whole point, is that they're supposed to look just normal, but be really cool underneath the hood, and this one does it. On top of that, it doesn't take a lot to make this thing look good. You literally just add like some Type R or SI style stuff on there, lower it, put some nice thick tires and wheels on there, and you got yourself a beauty. Coming in at 2nd place, however, is going to, I would probably say, the fan favorite. I would argue that most people say that the 5th gen, which is what it is the most popular, like their most loved Civic, which is the EG, technically, so everybody calls it by the EG. And these things are sick. They really are. Obviously, they're in 2nd place, but the only reason why I didn't put it in 1st place is because I hate the sedan version of the 5th gen Civic. I think it's one of the ugliest of all the Civics, but the coupes and the hatchbacks are absolutely amazing. My freaking coworker Damien used to have an EG Civic coupe, or I guess they're called EJ Civics or something like that, but you know what I'm talking about, and it looks gorgeous. I freaking love them. I think that EG Civics are massively beautiful. They did so well on the styling on this car. Obviously, they're very outdated interior-wise and stuff like that nowadays. They're freaking from the early 90s. What do you expect? But, oh my god, I love them. I also think this is the first time that they introduced an SI mod. No, actually, I think that's the 3rd gen that they, or 4th gen that they introduced the SI, but still, it was a cool car. I liked it a lot. But, of course, for first place, if you've been following along, paying close attention and doing the process of elimination, then you would have been able to tell that by now my favorite generation of the Civic is the 4th generation Civic, which is also known as the EF Civic. Oh my god, there is nothing I would change about the EF. Now, yes, I'm mainly talking about the hatchback, but even the sedan version of this car is very cool. However, the hatchback is just perfection. It is unbelievably good looking. It has great body lines. The taillights are incredibly like cool. They're very slim and narrow at the bottom of the car. It's got that boxy retro styling to it. The headlights are once again square and narrow. They look kind of aggressive, honestly, which is rare for Civics. They don't usually do that, except for like with the 10th gen. But they did great. Oh my god, the 4th gen EF Civics are just my freaking like I could talk about EF Civics all day long. I don't even think I've like ever really like seen one in real life, like at least one that's like modified. But just I only see them. Whenever I see them online, they just get me. They get me going. They grind my gears a little bit. I love them so much. I feel like people sleep on these so freaking much, but God, they're great. God bless them. Easily, EF Civic is my favorite. It's not even a competition. Like the EG is cool and the EK is really cool, but they don't even come close to the EF Civic. Like that's how much I love the EF. It is unbelievably gorgeous. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of ranking all the Honda Civic generations from worst to best. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Also, I don't usually do this because I hate to sound like one of those guys, but this is the end of the video, so if you watched all the way to the end, you probably care about the channel anyway, so you know that I'm not just trying to like feed comments out of you guys. But I want to know, what are your guys's? Rank all the generations of Civics from worst to best if you watched until this point. My dog has been barking non-stop. I am getting... I'm gonna go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment yours. Das Vidania. Have a nice night.